Hello everyone. So in the series of the discussion of answer writing practice for the UPSC mains examination and the UPPSC assistant professor examination, our next topic we are going to discuss is the reflexive equilibrium. So there may be question basically in the present time. Basically in this series we are discussing the that the topic which are relevant and the potential questions which can be asked in the examination. So there are a number of short answer questions. For instance, they can be the reflexive equilibrium. There will be the question of the overlapping consensus, right? Or there will be the question on the critique of Rawls theory of justice. There will be question on the libertarian theory of justice, right? So there are a number of questions which can be asked, and through this series of answer writing basically practice, we'll understand that the concepts, and then we'll also practice the answer writing, right? Simultaneously we are also practicing the answer writing, and our concepts are also getting cleared. And once we have this short answer type, and once we reached all this that 2 to 3 days these questions will be there, then we'll come to the long answer type questions, and there also we'll write the flow, right? So once you are get familiar with the concepts of John Rawls or libertarian theory, utilitarian theories, and Marxist theories and all, so then we'll come to the long answer type question. So that will be much better, to understand and write the answers. So now coming to the our question, that there may be the question as write a short note on the reflexive equilibrium. Write a short note on reflexive equilibrium, right? So this is our question. So how do we write this up, right? So now question is, how do we write this one? So first of all, if I would like to explain this reflexive equilibrium, so reflexive equilibrium basically refers to a kind of logical reasoning which basically activates our moral judgments, and it guides the our decision making and the actions, right? So this is what the reflexive equilibrium is. So we'll understand that how the Rawls principle of justice is more focused on the, as we know that as I think that you must have gone through that through the John Rawls, and you might have found that John Rawls theory of justice was basically a kind of revival of traditional theory of justice, right? As you can see that in the that post-behavioralist theory, that traditional values were basically that neglected and overlooked. So that's why the theory of justice, which was proposed by John Rawls, became a landmark in the modern times, right? So basically, it is also said that John Rawls was the greatest philosopher of 20th century, right? So this is the basically kind of introduction you can write, but this is not our that. Just I give the overview, but the thing is that our concern is to write the answers. So I'm writing the answers, and you have to understand it, and you should also write that one in your copy and read it 2 or 3 times, and then write your own answers. Okay. So now coming to the reflexive equilibrium, the Rawls theory of justice, Rawls principle of justice, we can say Rawls principle of justice are based on the intuitions. So Rawls principle of justice are based on the on intuitions or moral judgment. Moral judgments. According to Rawls, the principle of justice the principle of justice which we follow should be in accordance with our moral judgment. If they are not in accordance with the if they are not in accordance with the accordance with our moral judgment, will not yet able to follow such principles. Because our soul will not be at peace. The purpose of soul is being happy or satisfied. Hence, in this context, basically, John Raw proposed a methodology or method of reflexive equilibrium. Now, the question is, what is reflexive equilibrium? Which refers to the what? Refers to the type of logical reasoning by which we can understand our own preferences or judgments more clearly. You can say that it is a kind of, you can say that it is a process, or you can say in other words it is a process it is a process It is a process by which we bring our intuition in sync with our actions, right? Now, next paragraph you can write that according to the rules. So question is why this the concept of reflexive equilibrium was given by John Rawls as a principle, as a determinant or a methodology to guide the principle of justice. Because according to the rules, according to the rules, you know that before the John Rawls, there was another concept that is utilitarians, which was given by the Germany Bentham, was a dominating ideology, which was an ideology of liberalism, and that was more focused on greatest happiness for the greatest number, and that basically concept you might have heard that the Germany Bentham, the principle of utilitarianism, was was highly criticized by his own disciple, that is J.S. Mill, and he felt that somehow the concept of utilitarian is being misused by the capitalists because it is providing that the states will not be intervening and the total complete control of the capitalists on their own assets, and the workers or proletariats were being exploited. So, so this was basically the idea. So according to the rules, the utilitarians cannot be sound principle of utilitarians cannot be sound principle of justice. Why? Because according to utilitarian, pleasure should determine our action. Pleasure should determine our action rather than our moral judgment. As I've already said, that according to the Bentham, nature has placed mankind under two sovereign masters, pleasure and pain, pleasure and pain. This implies that human being perform actions to satisfy their appetite. Obviously, their pleasure rather than their pain. Okay. Hence, hence, for utilitarians, for utilitarians, quantity, quantity superseded quality of pleasures, and hence it is criticized as Pick's philosophy. You can comment who calls it a Pick philosophy. Okay. Pick's philosophy. Now coming to why this basically that it is called Pick philosophy. For instance, we can see the example we can also give, right? For instance, as per utilitarian, as per utilitarians, we should focus on maximization of, that means it justifies the profit maximization of capitalist at the expense of exploitation of proletariats. Hence, maximization of profit at the cost of human life may not be in in sync with our moral judgment, right? And he may be making profit. Why? Because he may be make profit, but his soul is not at peace. Why? Because you can also see that in society, that if you are hiring certain workers and if you beat him, so obviously directly or indirectly you are also harming yourself, your peace, you are harming your peace. So this is happening. So this is basically, you can see the similar idea. This is also similar to the Gandhian idea. Gandhian idea where Gandhi proposed that for one commits violence, it commits harms, it commits more harm to himself than the victim. The offender, why? Because the offender is harmed both morally and spiritual level and spiritual level. Okay. Hence, the person not be at peace. So this is all about. So you can also relate this concept in the modern times as well, that artificial intelligence is coming up, and the ethical biasness which is seen in the artificial intelligence is basically being seen as a threat to the human dignity, and hence it is being addressed, right? So we were working there that as engineer, so they are basically trying to incorporate certain algorithm which basically which promotes the human dignity and which is not biased. So that's all for today. So we'll coming up with the another concepts in the next class. Thank you so much.